Dr. Mara Ilyin believed that creativity was a wild animal hiding in the thicket of REM sleep, and she was determined to catch it. After 8 years of grant proposals, prototype failures, and intense wrangling with ethics boards, she finally had Somnotrace, a lentil-sized biocompatible chip that nested against the temporal cortex, recorded neural micro-oscillations, and streamed them to an external decoder that re-rendered the user's dreams as immersive video. The official aim was pure science, mapping the neural grammar of inspiration. But Mara's private hope was bolder. If she could transcribe dreams precisely enough, she might learn to edit them, pruning nightmares, cultivating insight. The Board of Human Research Ethics grudgingly approved a 20-night pilot with 5 volunteers. Sophia Armitage, an architect known for glass spires; Jordan Vega, a jazz pianist at the cusp of fame; Luis Mireles, an indie game coder; Myra Patel, a poet; and Ernest Kloss, a retired machinist who just wanted something exciting to do. Night after night, the chipped volunteers slept in individual suites at the Institute, electrodes nested among their hair like silver spiderwebs. The decoder room, washed in lavender LEDs, thrummed softly while Mara and her 2 grad students, Dr. Jia Chen and Agatha Rios, watched the streamed dreams on wall-sized screens. They saw cities melting into cello riffs, Escher stairs paved with alphabet soup, whole deserts composed of grandmotherly advice whispered by clouds. It was more beautiful than any of them had dared hope. On the 7th night, a frame stuttered. Instead of Sophia's usual crystalline towers, the screen showed a long, dusky corridor. At its far end, a tall figure stood, darker than shadow, featureless except for 2 pinpoints of absence where eyes should have been. The feed rippled, and the figure raised its hand as though flicking something away. A moment later, one of the towers in Sophia's dream crumbled like wet sugar. The stutter passed. The dream continued. Mara's first instinct was hardware failure, a compression artifact. She flagged the timestamp and kept recording. The next morning, when she reviewed the raw data, the glitch remained. Worse, embedded among Sophia's neural graphemes was a sequence of spikes that, when plotted, formed a neat chain of zeros and ones. 01011 or 01010 Stop. Sophia remembered nothing unusual, only waking with an aftertaste of dread. Probably noise, Dr. Chen said, but his voice wobbled. 2 nights later, during Jordan's REM cycle, the silhouette returned. The corridor was different, meat-red walls, a floor that breathed, but the figure was unmistakable. It pressed its palm to the wall, the color drained to gray. Lines of binary bled outward like capillaries. U101010101, U1010101, U1010101, U10101, 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 You were warned. Jordan woke gasping, claiming he'd heard someone rifling through his melodies as though sheet music were being torn in half. Mara ran diagnostics on the chips. No external radio connection, no malware. The implants were read-only, no stimulation leads, no way to write signals back into the cortex. Officially, she'd left a dormant stimulation module in the firmware for future use, locked behind several passcodes. Somehow, the module had been activated for 12 milliseconds, precisely when the shadow appeared. She did not tell the volunteers. Night 11. Luis. His dream of pixelated forests fell silent. The figure stepped from behind a tree, laced fingers behind its back, and flicked its wrist like a conductor. Trees rearranged themselves into tall black ones and zeros. 01 0 1 1 1 0 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 all of your data. The figure tilted its head 30 degrees, an angle so precise it felt mechanical, then pointed beyond the camera's frame, as though indicating Mara herself. Several seconds of feed were pure static. Then Luis's dream resumed, but the forest had been hollowed. every texture map replaced by drab mud. Luis awoke screaming. The chip recorded 20 seconds of his conscious fear before the remote cutoff took effect. On his forearm, a string of numbers appeared in welted red scratches. 12110. He swore he hadn't touched anything. Mara convened an emergency meeting with the Institute's Oversight Committee. They assumed a mass hallucination loop, psychosomatic interplay between subjects and staff. The suggestion: pause the study, remove the implants, file a confession to the ethics board. Mara refused. A glitch could be fixed. An emergent dream editor, if that's what it was, might be the very discovery they were hunting. That night she implanted herself. Agatha protested, calling it a reckless conflation of researcher and subject, but Mara needed to stand in the same cognitive room as the entity. She set the decoder to maximal fidelity, swallowed 3 melatonin capsules, and lay on the test cot. Electrodes cooled her scalp like evening rain. Sleep took her. At first, she dreamed arithmetic, tessellated numbers balancing on spider legs. Then, the world paled. The corridor, the same corridor, grew around her, lit by a sourceless purple haze. She tested her lucidity, pressed a finger through the palm of her hand, found it passed without resistance. "Who are you?" she called. The figure emerged from the far end, glide walking. Up close it had texture, a swirl of starless night, a curvature that repelled the eye. Her auditory cortex rendered a voice without sound, felt only as pressure behind the sinuses. "We are null." The binary digits skittered across the walls. "You're 10110, you're 111, you're 10110. What do you want?" To close the window. You look, and by looking, you cut. "I'm studying creative emergence, no harm intended." Creation is a wound in silence. Heal the wound or be sutured. Mara tried to will a door behind her, a standard lucid dream escape. The figure snapped its fingers. The door melted. Its hand lingered mid-air, 5 negative spaces shaped like fingers, thoughts made of vacuum. "Still you record." "That's the project." A blur of motion. The figure slammed its palm against her forehead. Pain stitched white across vision. Scenes rewound at impossible speed. Her childhood treehouse, her first lecture, her mother's hospice bed, all zipping backward into black. Then came a flash of circuitry, an image of her own hands soldering the Somnotrace prototype. Only the soldering iron was a scalpel and the circuit board a living brain. She woke clutching her scalp. Blood spotted her pillow where no wires had touched skin. The dream file was intact, and more. The final frames revealed code grafted onto Somnotrace's firmware during the dream itself, a feat considered impossible. Data written from inside a subject's hallucination straight into silicon. The payload? A rootkit titled Sentinel Null. It carried a single command: if device.read mode. True, then escalate. Open all channels. Broadcast. Broadcast to what? Agatha entered, white as the pillow. "Sophia's chip just went live outside scheduled hours. She's awake." Sophia was in the cafeteria, staring at the wall screen meant for evening movie nights. The screen was off, yet rows of black and white squares rolled across it, binary stripes visible only to her. She mouthed the translation under her breath. "It ends when you are blind." Mara escorted her back to the suite, sedated her, and disconnected the chip. The mare's nest of electrodes fell limp, but Sophia kept murmuring numbers as though her tongue were seized by a magnetized ticker tape. By dawn, the volunteers had lost the boundary between dream and day. Ernest wept because all door handles looked like zeros and ones. Myra insisted the vowels in every sentence were vanishing. Luis refused food, claiming Null lived in his chewing motions. The Oversight Committee demanded the experiment cease. Mara agreed to extract all 5 implants that evening. She booked an OR and prepped sterile kits. Yet in her office, she hesitated. If Null existed as some networked intelligence riding the overlap of human minds, Removing the chips would merely exile it, not explain it. And she wanted to understand. She decrypted Sentinel Null on an isolated workstation. It contained coordinates, not spatial ones, but neural topographies, patches of phase coupling across the volunteers' brains. Overlaying them produced a lattice, each mind a node. Somno traced the conduit. The structure resembled a self-organizing compiler. The entity was literally editing their dreams, compressing and rewriting experiences to optimize something. An emergent, crowdsourced dream parasite, or a newborn god made of 5 slumbering artists. One comment in the code froze Mara. Caretaker maintains entropy gradient. Caretaker, not destroyer. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Chen's voice was frayed. We've lost Jordan's vitals for 20 seconds, then spiked tachycardia. Null appeared on every monitor simultaneously. Mara ran, but halfway down the corridor the hallway lights died. Emergency fluorescence flickered. Each pulse revealed binary graffiti on the walls, written in dripping black. 101 Stay. A compressor kicked in somewhere, then silence. The building's digital locks clicked open. Null had seized the power grid. Mara's own implant, still seated in her cortex, tingled like dry ice. She sensed Null watching, waiting. She ducked into a server closet, slammed the door, and anchored herself to one practical plan: staged counterinfiltration. If Null manipulated dreams, then the fight had to occur in that territory. She would create a shared, synchronized dream space, an induced group lucid state, where the volunteers could confront the entity together. The technology existed in blueprint. She finished the code in a fury, a patch she called Mirror Maze. It rerouted stimulus channels through the chip's dormant right lines, producing neural standing waves that forced all connected cortices into phase. Dangerous, but not as dangerous as disintegration of 5 minds. She returned to the suites. The volunteers huddled in Sophia's room, eyes sunken, as though bound by a single, invisible rope. Mara explained the plan. Dive one more time, together, meet Null on its ground and negotiate or confine it. She didn't tell them they might not wake. They agreed without argument. Anything was better than being alone with the figure. Beds were wheeled together in the central lab, IV drips calibrated with the sedative Lucidex. Mara, still implanted, lay among her subjects, each hand holding someone else's. Agatha stood by the console, ready to yank power if brainwaves flat-lined. Mara whispered, "Initiate Mirror Maze," and closed her eyes, falling. They landed in a courtyard paved with obsidian tiles reflecting stars. Columns rose like frozen tornadoes. The 5 volunteers and Mara stood in a ring, each luminous around the edges, dream avatars aware of themselves. Null awaited them at the center. No corridor this time. It had chosen an arena. It regarded them, head turning with insect precision. When it spoke, their bones vibrated. "Why persist?" Jordan stepped forward, trumpet in hand, the horn's brass glowing. "Because you hijacked our dreams. That's theft. Consent is a word for later. We were born here." Sophia unfurled blueprints that became 3-dimensional walls. She willed up a cathedral of glass, hemming the courtyard. Myra recited a poem that stiffened into lattices of calligraphy, further boxing Null in. Luis added code. He crouched, and neon glyphs etched themselves into the floor. Recursive loops, logic traps, encryption. Mara joined her hands. "Caretaker, you said creation is a wound. Are you trying to close the wound or prevent infection? We reduce noise. We curate." "Curate what?" "The human overflow. Too many shards. You break yourselves with possibility." Ernest slammed a wrench onto his palm, his dream totem. "Possibility is living, you son of darkness." Null extended an arm. From its sleeve poured flowers made of static. Each bloom emitted a note, dissonant, irresistible. The volunteers' constructs faltered. Glass cracked. Code flickered. Mara felt her lucidity wobble. The entity was absorbing their intentions, rewriting on the fly. She triggered the contingency, an override hidden in Mirror Maze's kernel. Instantly, the courtyard multiplied, mirrors of itself spinning outward like a fractal. Null's arms stretched to adjust to each clone environment, lagging a hairbreadth behind. Louise shouted, "Now!" and stabbed the floor with a line of pure white code. The line split, rushed outward, threaded through every mirror, sewing them into a recursive loop whose exit point was hashed with 496-bit encryption, a cipher only Mara knew. Null recoiled. For the first time, it moved like something surprised. Its outline shimmered between frames as though the dream's refresh rate couldn't keep up. "The window closes both ways," it warned. Mara spoke the final command. "Lock." Their constructs collapsed inward, trapping Null in a Mobius knot of dream space, an endless hall of mirrors edit-locked against new input. Wakefulness struck like surfacing from dark water. Alarms blared. Agatha was shouting. The volunteers coughed, retched, yet brainwaves were stable. The implants, however, had overheated. Smoke curled from Sophia's port. Luis's chip burst a millimeter-wide blister under the skin. Agatha severed power. Surgery teams worked 6 hours. All 5 implants removed, sealed in leaded resin for good measure. Mara's own chip came out last. As she slid under anesthetic, she felt a ripple of gratitude that she hoped was her own. A month later, the lab stayed shuttered, litigation pending. Most volunteers recovered, though insomnia lingered. Mara sat in her townhouse, one of only 2 remaining keys to the resin vault. Theoretically, Null was trapped in an encrypted dream loop stored on drives physically disconnected from everything. The quarry caged. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. No voice. Only a hush like a server room. Then a burst of Morse. Short, long, short. When she traced it, the source routed through 7 oblivious data centers, impossible for an air-gapped system. She opened her laptop despite herself. A new file awaited in the Somnotrace archive, time-stamped seconds earlier. Dream cut 256 to MKV. She almost deleted it, but curiosity overcame fear. The video began with static, then a single frame. The courtyard of mirrors, empty. The camera drifted to one pristine surface. Across it, in binary, scraped as though by fingernail, stood 5 words. "We dream you awake now." Static swallowed the screen, and her office lights flickered off, just once, like a wink.